right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark McCall. I'm your facilitator for today. I'll also be your timekeeper. We'll have the judges introduce themselves in just a moment and then ask you to introduce yourselves. This is Saint Richards Episcopal School for Unit 5. Just as a reminder on your timings, you have 4 minutes for your prepared speech and 8 minutes for follow-up questions, and then the judges will provide you feedback at the end of that. And to help with your timings, sometimes you can't see the sign that says time or 1 minute. I'm going to do a virtual background for you. When you have 1 minute remaining, I'll switch to green. And when your time is up, I will switch to yellow. And with that, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to the judges.
Well, good morning. My name's Lindsay Draper. I'm going to talk to you a little bit and introduce myself and have my colleagues introduce themselves in a second. Want to start, though, by telling you how incredibly proud we all are of you. Don't want you to forget that next week, I think, is Teacher Appreciation Week. And please be sure that Ms. Neal knows how much you appreciate the work that she's done, because having you all here didn't happen without her doing it. So you all put a bunch in, and she did too. So we just want you to know we realize that. So having gotten that off my chest, I am here in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, retired from the juvenile court bench here. And my colleagues are. Okay, they're both muted.
I'm Candida Steele, and I'm retired as a judge on the U.S. Civilian Board of Contract Appeals. I handle federal government contract disputes around the country, and I've been with the program for about 20 years, so I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of you and your teacher for your hard work getting here. My name is Rebecca Tinder. I'm a retired attorney from Charleston, West Virginia, and also the West Virginia We the People coordinator.
Could I impose on you to introduce yourselves and your teacher, please?
I am Malcolm Hembry.
I am Richard Morris.
I am Mary Jane Ferquin.
And our teacher is Mrs. Neal.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm going to read you the question now. It is the first of the Unit 5 questions. When a choice must be made, it is better to allow those who preach racial hate rather than to be panicked into embarking on the dangerous course of permitting the government to decide what its citizens may say and hear. Do you agree or disagree with Judge Bernard Decker's upholding the rights of Nazis to march in Skokie, Illinois? Why? What limits has the United States Supreme Court placed on freedom of expression? What benefit, if any, is there from the presentation of ideas that are designed to alarm, antagonize, and offend members of society? What limits on freedom of expression, if any, should be placed on social media sites? Begin.
When the framers drafted the Bill of Rights, they had been independent of Great Britain for 15 years and had come to value freedom of expression, which had been limited during the colonial era. The First Amendment protects the rights of speech, press, assembly, and petition, and has been used to bring about great social change. If government restricts what people can and cannot say, this power may grow out of control, and before long our basic rights will be meaningless.
The Supreme Court has a long history of reviewing First Amendment cases, and throughout U.S. history, certain limits have been placed on free speech. This began with United States versus Cruikshank in 1869, when the court allowed states to independently regulate speech. Since then, the court has agreed to limits on criticizing the military, as in the Schenck, Debs, Abrams, and O'Brien rulings, and restricted speech in schools in Morris v. Frederick, fighting words in Shiplinski v. New Hampshire, and obscenity in Miller v. California, and political views in Whitney v. California. The latter was overturned by Brandenburg v. Ohio, which stands today. The Supreme Court has said that the purpose of the First Amendment is to allow people of different views to spread their opinions to the public for the benefit of all involved. However, the court has also said that some speech can be so hurtful to one of the parties and have no beneficial effect on other listening persons that in certain circumstances, the First Amendment does not apply. These forms of speech include fighting words, obscenity, and libel. There are few limits on political or content-related speech, except in schools, which follow a different standard.
The freedom to speak our beliefs is one of our most important rights. Exposing yourself to the opposite arguments can provide new perspectives on important issues and show the benefit of the First Amendment. In the case Collin v. Smith, the Nazi Party wanted to hold an assembly in Skokie, Illinois, which had a large Jewish population. The village did not want the rally to take place. Ultimately, the circuit court ruled that the offensive speech must be allowed, saying, under the First Amendment, there is no such thing as a false idea. The best check on hateful speech is not suppression by the government, but competition for other, better ideas.
A more recent debate over controversial speech involved Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s claims about the COVID-19 vaccines. He used a public platform to argue that the vaccine's safety had not been proven. Some of his claims were labeled false, and his Instagram account was suspended. Is it not important for us to hear or read his information to make our own decisions? And yet this is just one example of censorship taking place on social media.
In the first week of January, Donald Trump held a rally in Washington, D.C. During this rally, he told his supporters to go to the Capitol and demand that the counting of electoral votes stop. This protest turned into a riot, with Trump supporters breaking through the barricades and into the Capitol. Afterward, social media sites banned him from their platforms because of what they labeled his false and misleading language. Social media companies are private, meaning that they are not subject to First Amendment lawsuits. There is an argument that the social media companies are abusing this and making it so that the public only hears one side to a story. This can hurt our democracy.
However, some restrictions are proper to prevent chaos. Unregulated speech on social media has been used by extremist groups to communicate plans likely to lead to violence and illegal activity. It is responsible for media sites to ban this. Also, the government could and should regulate social media with an updated version of a fairness doctrine, much like it is used in the past to regulate television and radio. This would ensure that the large social media companies do not abuse their monopoly on internet speech. We agree with Judge Decker. As Evelyn Hall said, paraphrasing Voltaire, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. This was the core idea the framers had when they wrote the First Amendment. We're ready for your questions.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. Just a quick question for you. Given that different people view facts differently, who gets to decide what's really true? Dangers of vaccine are seen by different people. Some say it's dangerous and unproven. Others may say, oh no, this is what we need to keep us all safe. Does the government or does somebody have the right to decide which of those you get to hear?
So in those kinds of cases, normally the majority of the people, their opinion is taken as truth. However, it is not always the actual truth, and so it doesn't normally involve the government. But if a majority of people say that the vaccines are safe, then people take that the vaccines are safe, even though they might not be. So it's one of the dangers of that kind of society.
Yeah, so I agree with what Richard is saying, but I also think that what the government does to decide if something's fake or not real is they maybe put that information in a different perspective. And so it might not just be, is this life or death? Or if somebody takes this, are they going to help cure the planet of things and stuff like that? And I think that they maybe put it into, if I was driving down the road and instead of taking a left, I took a right. Kind of, they bring down the topic and they decide, well, am I just going to get sick or am I actually going to die from something? And so they put it in a different perspective.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned in your presentation the fairness doctrine. Can you explain what that is?
The fairness doctrine was a FCC policy that was used to say it made television companies equally distribute their time between both sides of a story. So if they talked about one political view, they would also have to say the view of the other side, like equally splitting their time between the two sides.
You spoke positively about that, didn't you? How do you think it should be used now?
We believe that it should be used in a way that when you're seeing these things on social media, you're not just seeing like one side of the story. You're not seeing, oh, the Trump supporters were breaking into the barricades. You're also seeing the Trump supporters side of the story, or you're not seeing, oh, the Black Lives Matter protesters, they were rioting. You're also seeing the reason they were rioting. Like you're seeing both sides of the story. You're not just seeing one person's point of view on that story.
Yes, it's like if the government, it would basically be like if the government, instead of allowing only one view to be heard, like the Capitol riot was horrible and that Trump had secretly planned it, something like that. But if that actually hadn't happened, but social media companies could just promote that idea and just take down other ideas about it, that's what the fairness doctrine would prevent.
So is that the same as, let's say, preventing false information from being disseminated? Does the First Amendment protect false information, or should it protect false information?
The First Amendment does not protect false information if it can cause someone to, like if you're telling someone that these are the facts and that those are actually false, it does not protect that. It will protect you in saying that this is my opinion on these facts. This is my opinion on how they should be applied.
Yeah, so it basically focuses mainly on the First Amendment, that is, focuses mainly on the real facts and both sides to a real fact, not necessarily the opinion on a fact.
Yeah, I would like to also bring it back to the Collin v. Smith ruling, where the circuit court said that under the First Amendment, there is no such thing as a false idea. So with that in mind, I think that you shouldn't restrict much. You could only restrict things that actually could hurt people.
So is there a difference between a false idea and just a falsehood? If I said the world is flat, is that a false idea or just a falsehood?
Go ahead, Malcolm.
Well, it's kind of both. Like if you hold in your heart that the world is flat and you have reasons for that, that's a false idea. It's not actually true, but it's not like someone's like, that's a false fact. It's because it's a false fact because it's been proven that the world is round. But you can't consider that as a false idea because that's what someone believes. That's their idea. And even if it is based on false facts, the complete falsehoods, that story that they're telling, they should be allowed to tell it.
It sounds as though you are preaching tolerance for everybody's idea, whether it's true or not. Is that correct? Is that what is? Have I read you correctly?
Yes.
Well, yes.
Unless those ideas can hurt someone, I believe that there should be tolerance for all ideas.
But I still come down to the question of who gets to decide that? Who gets to decide whether it's a false fact or whether it causes harm or Is that only decided by the courts?
Well, those type of facts and opinions are decided by not only the court but people around us, so scientists or doctors or parents even, and they're decided by personal experience or almost just what you've experienced by yourself. So basically, if back to what Malcolm said about how the earth, if you think that the earth is flat, that's been proven that it's not true. Or sometimes that would be a false, that would not be a false idea, that would be a false fact because it's been
Okay, we're a little over time. That was, I got it. Okay, so what was really interesting here, and towards the end, we got really close to what was the big stretch here. Opinion versus fact is a huge struggle. And do we have the right to voice our opinions? And clearly ours is a country that says, did you know about the First Amendment? Yeah, we do. And then we do have to limit it because there can be some ragged results if we, don't put some restrictions. And because we're in a world now where you can frankly choose what to hear. If I don't like a certain concept, I don't ever have to listen to anybody who says anything else. I can go to social media, I can go to the right TV station, I can go to the right radio, I can hear only people who say certain things. So it's a difficult concept. And so that's why as I watched you all struggle to come up with some answers, it was because we have entered into a world in which the ideas are so very difficult. I love the way you went back to Cruikshank. You gave me quite a trace of what I needed to hear you talk about, and the notion of the fairness doctrine coming in. I was so glad that you got asked about that because a lot of times people skip. There are a lot of things that have complicated the answer to this question. You all were just fun to listen to. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Canada, you're muted.
But that was really a lovely job. Thank you. It was really fun to listen to you. Just even starting out by saying that 15 years after independence was a nice way to begin. Your listing of the fighting words, obscenity, political views, that was just really helpful outline of what kind of conversations we're talking about here. And COVID was, you used a good example on COVID. And thank you very much for the fairness doctrine. I really appreciated you bringing that in. You did a wonderful job, and I hope that you've had a really fun time doing this. You look as if you've been engaged and think this is an interesting topic for discussion and education. And so I know you're going to be wonderful citizens. I just hope that maybe you might think of doing more with this experience than just voting every chance you get, and speak to your colleagues and friends and encourage them to get to know what's going on in the world so that they can vote intelligently as well. But hopefully you might end up being local, state, or federal government representatives for the rest of us, because we desperately need people who know what they're talking about, and you've already shown that you do. So thank you. I will sleep more easily in my nursing home knowing that you all are in charge. Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Great job to you and your teacher. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful, chock-full 4-minute presentation with so much information, and we didn't have enough time to unpack it all. It was very good, and ending with the Voltaire quote.
Yes, very nice.
Very powerful, very powerful. And then not only having that fabulous 4 minutes, you were able to unpack some of it while we were doing our questions with the fairness doctrine. And you also brought in Collin versus Smith in reference to false ideas. And I think you really embraced what I think all of us and maybe Congress should be practicing, and that is tolerance for other opinions and other ideas. And we're all struggling with what is fact and what is opinion. And I could see that struggle with you as well. And we recognize that having a diversity of opinions is a valuable thing. And you all displayed that very well today. And I appreciate all of your remarks. Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. And thanks, Mrs. Neal. We appreciate all of your hard work. All right, team, good luck, and we'll see you tomorrow.